Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another author interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia. Many of you know me as the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill. And joining us back here on the show is returning Wandering Scribe alumni. Now, if you know this guest, he is an incredible author. He is an author specializing in middle grade and YA stories. He has devoted himself entirely to his work, has developed a massive following for his series of works, and has been a mentor and role model to a lot of other authors in his journey. And I'm so excited to have him here back on the show, a really good friend of mine. So without further ado, viewers and listeners, let's give a huge round of applause to a returning Wandering Scribe alumni, my good friend and fellow author, Mark. Mark, welcome back to the show.
Great to be here, Gabe. Thanks for inviting me.
Awesome, Mark. Awesome. Now, before we dive into your most latest project that you have in the works, would you like to share with the viewers what you've been up to since the last time you were on the show?
Oh, I'm trying to remember back. I'm trying to remember where we left off. I have published another short story horror collection, which I don't think I had out the last time we spoke. It's called Passages of Peculiarity, Volume 2. And currently I am about through 2 months away from publishing the book we were speaking about right before we came on air, which was The Library Between Worlds, which is a middle grade fantasy series that I'm starting. I would say trilogy, but I have no idea how long it's going to run. It may be a duology, it may be a trilogy, it may go on. Like we were speaking about, it's kind of like the Magic Treehouse sort of vibe, and I want to see how far I can carry that along. So that's mainly it. Those two books, which will bring me up to six published, I believe.
Nice. Very, very nice. Now, for our new viewers who are now meeting you for the very first time, would you like to just give them a brief overview of your journey, of your writer's journey? Because you've been in the business a lot longer than me and have learned a lot, and have also shared a lot of what you've learned with other authors along the way.
Yeah, I love sharing. I really do, because that's what makes indie authors so what's the word I'm looking for? We're almost like a little clique.
Yes.
We're very tight. We really are. We like to. There are those that really don't like to share knowledge because it's almost like a competition to them, but I try to view it as a family. So I love sharing information. So, and first, thanks for noticing that, by the way. I appreciate that, because a lot of people just basically take the knowledge and run, and you never hear from them again. And then other ones like you have on that wonderful the IG chat that we have.
Yes.
There's a lot of good people there, and that's where I really like to connect. So that's really wonderful. And tell me the first half of that question again. I'm sorry.
Of course, of course. Can you give us like what was like a refresher overview of your writer's journey?
Yeah, it started back, well, if you really want to look at it, it probably started when I was about 8. I literally realized by the time I was 8 years old and I was reading The Hobbit and things like that, I said, I want to write. I want to create worlds like this. And so at once I got to a place in life financially, because it is expensive to self-publish. So once you get in that realm of you want to be a writer, you just run with it. And that's what I have done for years now. So I started out, it took me a long time to publish The Ruinous Curse, The Hunt for Alesta. That's volume 1 out of that trilogy. But once I got that out there, I started continuing. And then once I started putting that book into award programs and winning, then that made me feel even better. So I kept writing, and basically here we are today.
Nice. Very, very nice. And this is our first fan question of the lineup, Mark. And this one may be a little bit of a challenge to answer, but I'm really keen to see if you can. One of my viewers would like to know, of your works that you have written over the years, which one has probably been your favorite story to talk about? And secondly, which one was probably the most difficult to write in terms of characters, overall story, outlining, what have you?
Well, um, boy, that's a good one. Actually, the one that I think is hardest to write is the one that I'm working on right now. And I say that because now, since I have that trilogy that is winning awards, now I feel like I have to not only live up to that, but I need to try to surpass it.
Mm-hmm.
So it puts pressure on you after you have a few books out. It's like, oh, is this one going to be as good as the other ones? And can I live up to that expectation? And can I surpass it? Or am I going to set new goals? Or it's so I would say the Library Between Worlds, the one that I'm currently doing, is probably the hardest one. And because I mean, I think even no matter who you are, whether you're Dan Brown or any of the famous authors, I'm sure they put, like, how do you follow up the Da Vinci Code?
Right.
You see, that's what I'm saying. So that's kind of the feeling that you get is, oh, how do I beat that last one that I just made? So that's a hurdle for me. It has to be a mental hurdle, but it's still a hurdle nonetheless. And as far as I think the best one, I'm really, really pleased with the way The Ruinous Curse, The Hunt for Alesta, the whole entire series, but I'm particularly fond of the very first volume. That one I think turned out really well. It's got a really good balance to it. Everything that a reader would look for in a story is there.
Absolutely.
It doesn't drag. It doesn't, it just keeps moving forward. So I'm really pleased with that one. So I hope that answers it.
Absolutely, Mark. Absolutely. Now, since you have worked on so many different books in your life, I imagine that you have sort of developed I don't want to say routine, but almost like a balance to where you spend time on your writing and your projects, but also spend time with, friends and family to even everything out. Because I imagine there were probably some nights where you were just so overwhelmed with the other that you just want to take a step back and just refresh and recharge. So, how do you balance both of those aspects of who you are, the author and the individual?
It all comes down to boundaries. Um, it's and it is a difficult thing for an author because I I was going to answer that. I don't have friends and family, so I just write all the time. So, but seriously, it is it is just a skill you have to acquire. You have to learn how to tell people no when they're pressing on you and you really want to get this chapter or the end of the book written. It's like, nope, I'll connect with you next week, and then you keep writing. Or you can think to yourself, a break would probably be pretty good right now. So I can go hang out with whoever and then come back and maybe even take another day off after that just to refresh your little gray cells, and then you go back to it and your book's even better for it. So I think it's all personal preference. It's when people tell you you have to write every day, that's ridiculous. Um, Seriously, it is, because how much this is what I want people that have that mindset to think of, is how much creativity can you make when you try to create something 7 days a week, 365. You can't do it. It
Mm,
burns your brain out. You cannot create new material, not worthy material, 365. You have to take a break. So when these people read like the Stephen King book that says, write 2,000 words every day, that's great if you can do it. And I'm not knocking people that do it. If that's your method, great. But for me, I couldn't do it. And I don't do it. So I always tell people take at least 2 days off during the week. Doesn't matter what days they are, just take 2 days off or you're gonna flounder and you're really gonna struggle to write.
Absolutely. Very, very true. Now, this next question, I'm very keen to hear your insight on because I definitely think I've talked to a lot of authors who have written middle grade and, of course, who have gone into YA. And the one thing I keep noticing is that as opposed to, adult fiction where the characters are older and as authors are able to write those characters a little bit easier, when it comes to writing characters who may be, like, say, in high school or middle school or elementary school, it's very difficult because how do you write children characters that feel authentic and don't come off as, oh, they're kids, but they're speaking as adults? I struggled with that in my latest book, Decimus. His son, in the beginning, spoke like a young man, even though realistically, he's only 10 years old. He wouldn't be speaking like that. And I struggled with that for a very long time to get his voice right and authenticity and accuracy right. So for you, Mark, and for your books, how did you really fine tune your writing to really make sure that your characters felt authentic, not only to the story that they were into, but who they were as characters?
Wow, that's another tough one. That's hard to answer because, again, I think it has to do with life experience. And for example, if you've never had children and you never raised children, it would make it more difficult, obviously, because you don't understand how they connect with their friends, how they speak, how all their little nuances they have, and all the modern. Fortunately, when I write fantasy, it's in a different time. Obviously, it'll be set in so they're not speaking with um, today's modern vernacular. They don't use it. So making them speak semi-modern, but yet in a medieval setting or something fantasy setting is a challenge. And all I can tell you is there's no formula for it. There's really not. I know you don't want to hear that, but there's really no formula for it. Watch TV. Seriously, watch TV. Watch how the kids interact with and take away tidbits of what you want. Because obviously, a lot of that is for drama and it is to get you to watch the show. So some of it's not real. It's just made up garbage that they put on TV. But you can watch the interactions and you can say, oh, that's what I'm missing. Okay. And that's because some kids will be really sassy and snotty to their parents. And then other ones are just like perfect men and women. They're like little perfect people yet.
Right.
So you have a really large contrast there. So to find the middle, it just takes practice. That's the only thing. I know that's not the answer you wanted to hear, but that's
No, but you're absolutely right, Mark. You're absolutely right. And I actually remember talking with a friend on this about what was it? Writing emotional scenes with, younger characters. And I brought up the point of, in my opinion, in more recent years, specifically this year, of young child actors in film and media who have given incredible performances that we as writers can use and take away for research is the young actor who played Prince Egg in the HBO series Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Out of all the actors, his performance in that series was just so incredible. Yes, he plays a prince, but he's still a kid. And I love how you see that balance of the two and just how the actor brings that character to life. As an author, I was so mesmerized, like, oh my gosh, so you can write believable kid characters that are complex, that are authentic to who they are as people. It's just so amazing and so incredible. Which kind of leads into the next question, Marks. So this actually focuses on your more upcoming and more recent project that you're working on. And this may delve into a little bit of spoilers, so feel free to give or as much or as little. But regarding the characters in that Magic Treehouse style book,
Mm-hmm.
which characters would you say has been some of your favorite to explore? And without delving too much, are there any characters that readers should keep an eye on for potential follow-ups in the future sequels?
Well, the thing about we have there's literally only four protagonists, one antagonist, and then we have her parents, which only make a very, very brief entry in the beginning and then again at the end. Because the rest of the time she's off-world, if you will. She goes through the portal and she's wounds up in another world. So as far as they're all going to the friends, it's almost like a TV show. So the four friends are going to continue on every book. So they're
right.
Frieden, who is the archivist at the library, he gives them their missions and they go and they do it. And then you have Emma, Cedar, and Phelan, which are going to be the trio that's going to travel from world to world. And then in this book, Eraser was the antagonist. So he got, and I won't spoil the end of it, but he's not in it any longer, but he will be making a return later.
Nice.
So,
okay.
So I don't think that's spoiling anything, but as far as I like the complexity of writing multiple. I even had 5 friends in the Ruinous Curse series. There was 5 of them traveling together.
Right.
And to go back to your former question, writing like that, writing more than one, you always have one main character, but you have several sub characters that can be very close to the main. And the reason I bring that up is you can it makes writing easier, because then all you have to do is think back to your childhood and how did your friends engage with one another.
Right.
And that's where a lot of that what you were asking about earlier about how do you do that. Yeah, the words have changed for kids. Their language has changed from when we were growing up in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, whenever you grew up. Yeah, the language has changed, but the interactions have not.
No.
And that's what you need to draw on when you write those characters. And
absolutely. That is 100% very, very true, Mark. Now, another question I'm very curious ask you, and I don't think I asked you this the first time I had you on the show. For every project, for every book that you write, Mark, you have a why that you're thinking of, in the sense of, why am I writing this particular story? Why am I interested in this story? For every book that you are writing, do you ever have that thought in the back of your mind?
Yeah, all the time. For me, it's easy. It's very, except with the exception of my horror short stories, the Ruinous Curse series and the Library Between Worlds is because I want kids to read, plain and simple. I still love, but I absolutely loved reading when I was that age. When I was from 8 on up, I read everything I could get my hands on. I mean, literally. About nonfiction was even nonfiction. I was reading story about baseball players, and I was reading all that when I was growing up. And I think that that really, really carries forward. And I thought, I spent a lot of time in my life reading books, and
Mhm.
I want to give that back.
Absolutely. I think that
So,
is very, very true, especially nowadays. I have met a lot of authors that have that same mentality that they want people to read, adults, children, anyone. They want
yeah,
to have that passion, for reading. And I couldn't imagine my life not reading. Reading has been such an
right.
integral part of my life. And for all authors, I think we can all agree that reading has helped us shape, who we are and our writing style. And with that said, Mark, looking back at your own writing as not so much as an author, but someone who is, let's say, doing research, did you ever stop to think of any authors that you have read growing up that may have impacted your writing subconsciously without you knowing it?
um, I don't think that, no, I think mostly all the ones that I grew up with influenced me in some way or another. And I consciously remember, like, I loved Agatha Christie. I've still got probably every book she's ever written over here. And I just, the way she writes is just fabulous. I wish I could write like that. She's just absolutely fabulous. And I've taken some from Stephen King. I've taken some from Tolkien and Eddings, and the list goes on and on.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Jordan, all of them. And I don't think any. I suppose it could have been subconscious that they worked their way into my thought process as I'm writing, but most of them was intentional. Like, oh, I love the way Stephen King takes everyday things and turns them into a horror scene. That really helps me when I write horror. And
Right.
then I take Agatha Christie's. Uh, she only gives just enough information to she drops clues and she gives you information, but she doesn't really reveal what's going on until you move further in the book. And that's really fascinating too. So subconsciously, I suppose all of them, all my favorite authors had an effect on me.
Yes, very true. Very, very true. And now this kind of goes into a lead up into what I like to call the reflective questions. And this one's kind of a more personal one, Mark. And I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on this. Now, I've been asking authors, I want to say, beginning of this year and specifically last year, more so this year, this notion of claiming the title of author. And the reason I asked them this is because I've noticed and seen and have talked with a lot of other people, both online and in person in my own writer circle, of kind of like I don't want to say stigma, but kind of like a different reaction when you tell people that you're an author. If you tell them you're an author signed with Macmillan or HarperCollins, there's like a genuine reaction, like a awe feeling. But when you tell somebody that you are an indie author, a self-published author, depending on the individual, it may be still a genuine reaction or it could be a very negative reaction. And some people, as they've shared their experiences, have said that when you tell somebody that you are an indie author or a self-published author, they don't believe that you are a true author. And that messes with a person's self-confidence and imposter syndrome. And it kind of stumps us from, claiming the title of being an author and taking ownership of it, because you know what? We write our stories, we do the work, we do all of this. And this kind of goes into this knowledge of who is, I should say, what considers somebody to be an author as opposed to being a writer? Is it just because you publish something or is it something more? So ultimately, Mark, the question I pose to you is this. Throughout your journey, when did you feel comfortable and confident in your own abilities to go out and tell people and to yourself that you are an author? And in your opinion, from your experiences again, is there a difference between someone who says they're a writer as opposed to saying that they're an author?
I think that there's no concrete answer for that. There's not even an easy answer for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those stigmas that's going to be, I think it's going to be around for as long as it is traditional versus indie.
Mm-hmm.
Traditional is losing ground right now. In fact, they're well aware that they're losing ground, so they're even loosening their straps, so to speak, on who they let in and who they don't. So it's actually becoming easier to get into traditional publishing. But with that said, what's more important to you? If you've ever dealt with an author that has been through traditional publishing, or if you know anybody that works for a publisher, then you will know that you have none or very little say so over your cover design. You cannot, they'll tell you, oh, this part of the book doesn't work, you have to edit it out. And a lot of times that's fine. That's fine. You know, if you have an editor, they're going to tell you the same thing anyway. Well,
Very
this part of
true.
the book doesn't work, you know, so let's change it. Let's edit it out. So going back to the traditional, I just like the total, excuse me. I like the total control I have over being a self-published author. It does carry more weight depending on who you tell it to. Some people will not care. They don't care at all if you're self-published or traditional. They don't care. They just say, wow, you're an author, you know, that kind of thing. I've done that in signings before. I've gone into signings. People don't care. A lot of them, they don't care if you're self-published or not. They just know that there's a really cool book laying on the table. And when they go to talk to you about it and you start talking about it, at that moment, they could care less if you are self-published or an indie author, a traditional author. So again, it affects everybody differently, and there's never going to be an easy answer for it. And I think you can call yourself a writer. I would say probably as soon as you put words on a page, your work. Does it need to be published? That sorry, my kitty's crawling on me. That absolutely helps. But does it lessen the fact that you are writing? Like a lot of people will write poetry, you know, in their spare time, they write poetry, but they won't publish it until they have an entire works. Does that mean they're not an author? No, that just means they're working on their book. So very complicated question and no easy answer. I absolutely think as soon as you put words on a page, you're absolutely a writer. Now, when I think of author, I think of published. Automatically, my brain goes to published.
Right.
So I would say call yourself a writer. I'm a writer. And then once you actually publish, then you can say, I'm an author. I'm a published author.
Right.
So, but a lot of people will disagree with that. But that's.
And you're right, Mark. There is no easy answer for this. And it's it all depends. And I think it's a good way to look at it, that it's like an evolution, you could say. Like if you put pen to paper and begin writing, you are a writer. Right. And then when you publish something, when you make that commitment to publish your work, you are a published author. It is indeed an evolution. And this next question is another one which is also very personal. And it talks about, what does it mean to be an author in the digital age? Because being an author in the digital age has greatly changed the playing field in the publishing industry. As you said before, the traditional publishing world is gradually changing. It's kind of losing its footing a little bit. 30 or 20 years ago, that would have been unheard of as, self-publishing, indie publishing, hybrid and small press. for a long time, and depending on the individual again, was seen as a lesser form of publication. But
Yes.
now, 20 years later, with the rise of the internet, social media, and new voices entering the industry, it's completely changed the game for everybody. And of course, the lockdown and COVID also played a huge role in that because everybody was working on their passion, working on something that they are passionate about. I myself began my career during the lockdown, and it's changed me, for the better as an author. But with that said, yes, social media has greatly changed the playing field with addition to the internet and more, but it's a double-edged sword. Social media can be very draining, very taxing on the person, leave ourselves exposed to the negative side, heighten our writer's block where people are constantly asking, when's the next book coming out? Are you working on the next book? And you don't know if there's going to be a next book in the series. Or imposter syndrome, where we see reviewers compare our books to others. And while that may be good to help promote it for ourselves internally, we're thinking, should we even be in that category and all that stuff? Ultimately, Mark, my question to you is this. With all that said, throughout your journey, what is still, I don't want to say motivate, but has disciplined you to stay true to your original goal, which is at the end of the day, with your stories, you want to motivate and inspire children to read, first and foremost?
Yeah, I think that's the whole motivation right there. You just said it. I just keep thinking, because all I have to do is think back to my childhood when I was so engrossed in reading. And I just want to continue that. And that's my motivation is like, okay, well, if the Ruinous Curse series what set my groundwork, now I can build on that and keep doing some middle grade fantasy. Well, because I have a system where, like right now, my book is with my editor. So while she is going over that, I'm writing horror stories. So I'm always writing. And granted, that's not for the kids, obviously, because this is adult horror. It's more like Edgar Allan Poe, Gothic type. So as I'm writing horror short stories, my brain can totally switch, which I highly recommend, by the way, to a lot of new writers. If you get stuck, write a story that is completely out of your realm. Like, for example, just the one I just gave. I write fantasy, but yet I found myself writing horror, short story horror, not like slasher type horror. Mine's more like psychological type of terror horror. And that makes me completely forget fantasy. And it really helps writer's block. It helps clear your mind of any problems that you had with it. And then when you go back to it, you have a fresher perspective, and it works out really, really well. So I think in the long run, I think the motivation to get kids to read is always going to be my driving force.
Nice. Excellent, Mark. Now, this next question is a debate question that I've been asking a lot of my guests on the show recently. It's something that I used to ask a long time ago, and I've kind of tweaked it a little bit. And it is this notion of, are we in a golden age or have we entered an iron age? And the reason I'm re-asking this question is with the recent, or I don't want to say recent, but with the increasing popularity of AI and it trickling down into the creative industries, narration, publishing, what have you, it has definitely changed the playing field. And for a long time, a lot of people have argued that we're in a golden age, after the lockdown. But now most people have begun to realize that we are now entering an iron age, but there's a shift. On one side, you have people who are passionate about the industry and want to grow. On the other side, you have people who just want to make a quick buck in the industry and are using AI to generate books and sell them to make a profit. And I've had a lot of people give their insight on AI, more specifically generative AI in particular. AI is in every software program. There's no way we can get around it. Spell check itself is AI, so we can't say we're against AI. But generative AI, people do have an issue with. So, again, in your opinion, Mark, are we still kind of in a golden age, or have we transitioned into the Iron Age period of writing?
I that okay, let me address AI really quick. There was going to be no stopping it.
Right.
It basically somebody kicked the barn doors open and out it came. And here it is. And it's never going to go away. It's never going to change. Now, obviously, when I say never going to change, is we can't go backwards. I mean, AI will continue to improve. It will grow. It's already being used for things that it should never be used for. But it's too late. You can't take it back. So it's already there. So people are getting so upset. Stop worrying about what other people are doing if they're not like stealing your work. Now, if they're using AI to steal your work, then you have a legitimate complaint and you can complain about AI. But just complaining about it isn't going to make it go away.
No.
It's not going to change anything. You can post all you want. And for all those people that say that, oh, M dashes are, then you obviously have never read. You obviously do not read books if you're saying that the M dashes are from AI. Agatha Christie was using a plethora of M dashes in the 1920s. We're talking 100 years ago.
Yep.
So Tolkien used them. Eddings used them. Every major author in the past, and going way back past even the 1920s, you can go back further and find them being used. So it's blaming AI is like I don't even know how to compare it. It's humans program AI. AI doesn't do it itself. AI did not go out and steal your book. A human did it.
Yes.
Okay, so AI was people that use AI to write their entire book and then publish it. Of course, yeah, that's just the way human nature is. They want to find the quickest, easiest way to solve the problem or to make money off of it, and there you go. So complaining and trying to say, oh, that's AI written. Well, so what? That's their choice. You can't make them change their choice.
No.
You can't control people. So as far as that aspect goes, it is never going to it's never going to go away now.
No. Absolutely true. And it's unfortunate to say, but you're right. AI, it's like the new Pandora's box. We've opened it,
Yep.
and it's going to be here, and it's going to continue to evolve because we as people are very, very curious about the new thing. And before we go into the marketing side, there's almost like a quick add-on. Do you feel that the craze for AI is almost like the new age comparison to when the internet was first introduced, how everybody was up in arms about the internet, that kind of mentality?
Yep, that's exactly what it is. It's a knee-jerk reaction. It just, even if you have an iPhone or any kind of phone, you've been using speech to text or things like that. You've been using it for years. You just didn't even know it. And now that they again swung the door open, now I guarantee you people are going to try to make billions off of it. And unfortunately, some of the authors are going to fall into that trap where, oh, I can write my book with AI and I can get it. In fact, I do book reviews, and just to just to show you how there was literally there was a series that I reviewed, and they published like 6 books all within about 3 weeks.
That's not possible.
Now, with that said, keep this in mind. Some people do. They will write like an entire trilogy.
Yes.
They will write a trilogy, and then they will put one book out. And then 3 months later, they'll put out book 2. And then 3 months later, they'll put out book 3.
Yes, that's true.
That's a market strategy. That's
Yes.
totally different than creating 6 books that you can tell are AI written and putting them out week after week after week after week after week. So is it going to be unscrupulous people? Absolutely. Nothing we can do about it. So I always find it amazing that some people sit and complain about them. You can't take it back. You're not going to make them take their books down. It's the way it is. Now, a lot of them, though, what they don't understand, in my opinion, is they're fibbing. Because if they do not claim that their book is AI written or help with the AI, and then they post it, that's not really being honest. So that's the part that I have problems with. I have problems with the dishonesty. Do I care if an author uses AI? What do I care? How does that affect my life? It doesn't. Yes, I know it puts more books out in the market, but do you really think an AI book like that is probably going to compete with something that you've written? Probably not. Maybe, but probably not. So it's like you said, the Pandora's box analogy is perfect, because that's exactly what we have on our hands now.
Absolutely, Mark, 100%. Now we go into probably one of my favorite segments of the interview, and that is, of course, the business side of being an author. So now it's a little icebreaker question for these round of questions. When it came to publishing your first book at the time, what really surprised you about that aspect? And going into the potential, library trilogy, when that book is finished, what are you going to do differently for that book that you wish you'd done for your previous works?
Oh, well, I'm trying to keep them sort of parallel, to be honest with you. I've got a lot of positive on my reviews. I've got a lot of positive reviews that said that, the world was whimsical, it was really well put together, and the characters were believable, and et cetera, et cetera. So all I'm trying to do is take that and put it into the series that I have now. I want my characters to be believable. I don't want somebody to read it and say, well, that would never happen. Or that's really bizarre. Like, I actually have talking doors in the one series, and it's because it's kind of a cross between Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter kind of feel. So it has really magical places, and then you have the good versus evil that you have on Lord of the Rings. So it's just kind of not that I'm taking anything from either one of those books. It's just the feel of it, and that's what I hope to carry forward to this new series. I really hope that I can just.
Excellent. Now let's talk about probably a major aspect, or one of the major aspects when it comes to the marketing aspect, is understanding the audience and readership. And I love talking about this because it doesn't get a lot of discussion or further refinement, because as authors, and I'm also sure you have probably seen, Mark, on the interwebs, almost as you were talking about before, how, some authors say that you need to write, every day 2,000 words a day. And that may work for some people, but it may not work for everyone. And when it comes to marketing our book and understanding our audience and readership, there's something that I've always loved to talk about with guests, and it's that the balancing between an author's individuality and authenticity with the marketability of the book. It's this nice balancing act. Because on the marketing side, when we look at certain genres, readers in those genres have certain expectations for how a story is supposed to go. You don't want to be too similar to another book, because people are going to continuously draw comparisons and view it as a knockoff version. But on the other side, you don't want to be too original that's going to throw people off. You want to find that nice sweet spot, but also stay true to your own voice as an author. You don't want someone to pick up your book and think, oh, this is the next George R. Martin or Brian Sanderson. You want them to hear your voice, who you are. It's this very delicate tightroping act. So for Mark, for all of your books, how have you been able to balance those two scales?
That is, there's nothing wrong with being original. Just like I said, I just have talking doors, for goodness sakes. I've got doors that literally are magical. So when the kids come up to them, they ask them like a question, and if they get the question right, the door pops open and they can go in, and that kind of thing. So you absolutely have to have originality. You have to.
Yes.
But are you also going to draw from other authors? Yes, absolutely. Anybody that says my idea is 100% original is probably wrong. Because subconsciously they watched a movie or a TV show or read a book that gave them that idea. And they say, oh, I can use that. And then they use it, but then they find out that they're actually copying a little bit from what they just, and that's fine. As long as you put your own spin on it. It's when you actually can't think of anything and you steal someone else's ideas and then start writing. You'll read countless, after Tolkien came out with Lord of the Rings, there was, oh my gosh, every book after that tried to copy what he did.
Right.
And I mean, and they didn't even bother to even like hide it. They were stealing his work, and all as they did is basically change some of the character names, but the plots were so identical, so close together that you couldn't tell the books apart. That's the kind of writing you don't want. Because you don't want to just jump on that bandwagon because somebody's towing it down the road. You have to have your own individual style. You're going to fail. Now, to find what you're talking about is one of the things that writers don't understand is their book is not going to, you cannot put a book out that's going to appeal to everybody from 8 to 88.
Correct.
It's just not going to work. You're going to have to figure out what your audience is before you even start writing.
Yes.
Who am I writing for? Okay, I want 8 to 13-year-olds. Probably not, because, like, for example, that would be a good one, because you have lower middle grade, you have standard, and you have upper middle grade. I write for upper middle grade, which means my books are a little harder for like the 8-year-olds. Can they still read it? Yes, but they're going to have to look up some of the words. Okay, but a 13-year-old that's already been reading for so many years will pick it up and keep going forward. So that's kind of, as soon as you identify your audience, that will help you write.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Now, Mark, this is a new question that I've been asking a lot of my guests, because I've been seeing this a lot, and it's something that happens in the publishing industry, and it's the fluctuation of what is considered middle grade, what's considered YA, was considered fantasy, romantasy, all that stuff, and the industry is constantly fluctuating. And a lot of authors are not happy with this because there's no standard, like set standard. Like if you look at video games have set standards of like E for everybody, teen, mature. Same with films. And I've been asking a lot of authors this question, and it is, do you believe that there should be what's the word I'm thinking of? Almost like a standard rating level in the publishing industry when it comes to what is classified as, middle grade, YA, adult fiction, stuff like that? Or do you think that it would be too difficult to regulate and mandate that? Because as some authors have pointed out and have said, it would, in a way, restrict certain authors of what they want to write.
I agree. That's another Pandora's box, actually. If you sit and think about it, it is a very difficult subject, just for the fact that you're right. You're absolutely right. They are going to restrict certain authors to do, but then again, I've read books that were utter nonsense. I mean, there was so much in it, I couldn't even tell what genre it was.
Right.
And it was like, what? My head's melting. I don't even know what I'm reading right now, because it was everything. I mean, it was going from, I mean, obviously it's fine to have romance. It doesn't matter what genre you write. I don't even care if you write horror. You can have horror, romance and horror. But so you have all these fields out there. In fact, they even invented, like, what is it? New adult? I think
Yes.
see, I don't even agree with that one. That one should. That's just my opinion. Again, I'm sure some people will disagree, but there should be, just my genre alone, the middle grade. There should be 3 distinct layers of middle grade, because my book, again, you could put it over to a low middle grade from the 8 to the 10-year-olds, and they might do well with it. They might not. You move it up to the standard middle grade from like 10 to 12, then they're probably going to understand it. But if you go from 12 to, say, 14 or 15, they're really going to understand it. And that's so, but you won't find that. If you just got to put it under middle grade.
Yes.
There's not easy, and then easy reader is for like the kids that are still reading books like Dora, Dora and things like that, Dora the Explorer. So that's your 5 through 8-year-olds. So for one thing, I don't think it'll ever happen, because it's just too much. There's no governing body.
Right.
So no one is here to say, let's do it this way and let's make it blanket for everybody. And it's probably going to stay in the mixer for a very long time, the way it is now. It's a mess, really. But it does open the doors for indie authors a little wider, because then we can pick and choose, because you'll see the list growing of the categories that we can put it in.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, very, very well said, Mark. Very, very well said. And now we go into my new favorite segment, the rapid fire round of questions. Now, these are all fan questions that have been sent to me since the beginning of last year. And I'm really keen to hear your insight to some of these questions. So starting off, and this always seems to stump people.
Do I need like a football helmet if this is going to be rapid fire? Do I need like a helmet?
Oh,
to
no,
protect
you're
myself?
good, Mark.
Okay.
You're good. You're good. So starting off, as a reader, which do you prefer, themes or tropes in fiction?
I would say I'm open to both. I lean towards tropes, but with that said, I don't want, just like we were just talking about earlier, I don't want a book that's just rehashed from another book.
Right.
I want some originality, or I'm probably not going to read it. I'm just going to put it down. So
absolutely.
If I had to pick between the two, I'd go with tropes.
All right. And second fan question, still talking about tropes. And this one is probably a little bit more difficult because it talks about, certain types of tropes. In your opinion, what is the most underrated trope in fiction, and what is the most overrated trope in fiction?
I know, people, get your tomatoes ready. You might as well just start throwing them. I really do not like the enemies to lovers kind
That
of
has
thing.
been the most common answer. You're good.
And in fact, that's probably why I don't have as much hair as I used to, because I think I've torn it out as I as I was reading. It's like, oh, stop doing this. I can't read anymore. No, no more, no more. So that's really, I think that's my pet peeve one, the one that the friends or the enemies to friends, or even vice versa, even the friends to enemies really gets, it's like, how many different ways can you do that? How many different ways can you, so that's one of the ones that I don't particularly care for. The rest of them, I think I can go. I Yeah, that's probably my best answer, I think, because I think I can read just about anything else as long as it's got some originality in it and it's put together well. I don't care what kind of book it is.
All right. Do you think that there's an underrated or underappreciated trope that doesn't get a lot of
Oh,
recognition?
I forgot that part. I That's a good one. That's a good one. I have to think about that one. I can't think of anything that is underrated, because literally, and that's one of the reasons I cherish original work, is because it seems like a lot has been done. So it's hard to find one that's underrated, because it seems like everything's already been expanded on.
Right.
So I would say, I'd say a lot of times we don't concentrate on connection. Like you talked about how the kids, how you write for teenagers. Well, I've got 5 main characters and they don't always agree with each other. It's just like a regular teenage crowd growing up. And I think that's one of the most underrated tropes, is actually having legitimate, logical sounding relationships
All right. Nice.
amongst characters. Because generally you're going to have the good and the bad, or the hateful and the non-hateful, and you just don't see the interaction. It's always like bickering back and forth a lot of times. So you have it where it gets old after a while. So if you add a good relationship in there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, as an author, which of the 5 physical senses is the most difficult to showcase in storytelling?
I suppose that depends on your skill level, really. I've seen some authors that touch on like all 5 senses wonderfully. I mean, just beautifully, seamless. It flows and it makes perfect sense. Everything they do, they give the characters thoughts. They just give everything. I think when people are writing multiple characters, I think the most difficult thing, one of the things they get lost in, is one the senses, is sight. And I say that because like one character will be seeing something that they can't even see, because just a paragraph before they had like their back turned,
Right.
and then you miss that. So I think keeping the camera focused where it's supposed to be, and I call that's basically your sight. So keeping the camera focused, the proverbial camera, I think that's the hardest.
Okay. Very good. Now, in regards to conflict, which is your favorite way to introduce conflict into a scene, whether it's the beginning, middle, or end? Through emotion or through action?
Mixture.
Nice.
Mixture. If it's a building conflict, one of your main character or antagonist, however you're writing your book, the person that's the star of the book, they're gonna be thinking in their head as it's leading up to the conflict. Probably, like, it's almost like getting into, like, 2 characters getting into a fight. They're not just going to walk up to each other and start slugging. There has to be some kind of interaction first.
Right.
So that interaction is where your emotions are going to come in, because your face is going to change, your thoughts are going to change. And then if that doesn't get resolved, you move into the conflict where they start slugging it out, more or less, or however they're going to shoot each other, or whatever the case is. So I think that's the way to go. I think mixing them together is the perfect mixture.
Nice. All right. All right. Now, this one talks about networking and how important networking is for authors. So, in your opinion, Mark, when should authors, especially new authors just entering in the industry, begin networking?
Okay, let's define networking first. Are we talking about network for sales or network to build your following or friend network?
Okay,
Give me
yeah.
your definition.
So, network for me is, I would imagine, in my opinion, building your team in a sense of you have someone that knows someone for readers, someone who's a good illustrator or a graphic designer, someone who's a good editor, someone who can offer advice. You're building your team as like your core foundation, which can then splinter off into, as you said, someone who can help you get in touch with sales, someone who can help you get in touch with someone who does marketing, building the core foundation of your inner circle.
Well, I would say that's probably one of my least favorite things, really. But it is a necessity.
Right.
And now I have never been a staunch believer in the benefits of social media, period, for selling. Like you cannot, I have yet to have any author truly say to me, "Oh, I sold 35 copies off of Facebook just this week." What? That kind of thing. It's just not a sales platform. And people don't understand that. They say, well, I'm on TikTok and I'm on this and I'm on that and I'm on this. And I say, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Your sales are not you might get a random sale here, random sale there from the internet. The only thing that I think social media is good for is connecting guys like us
Yes.
or gals or just a writers collective, if you will. That's
Hmm.
where social media comes in benefit. So yes, absolutely build a following of people that you want, not just, oh, I'm a marketer from Mars. I don't care. It's not one of those things. You
Hmm.
pick and choose who you want, get them together, and let things flow. And then you wind up with interviews like this, or you wind up with friends that'll say, "Hey, I can give you a discount on editing for your book," or something like that. So that's where it comes in handy. If you're looking to social media for sales, I think you may be sadly disappointed.
Absolutely. Wise words, Mark. Wise words. Now, before we get to the very end of this amazing author interview, the last rapid fire question is probably the most doozy, and that is, in your opinion, when an author reaches the very end of the drafting phase, which is the most difficult for them to accept? Knowing when to stop editing or knowing when to stop writing?
Um, Both. You Well, for one thing, if you're editing and you're not even done writing, then you already have issues. I mean,
Right.
because if you're still trying to figure out if you should be still writing and you're editing, then you've already missed a crucial step there. So I would say that was one of my when I wrote TRC1, the Ruinous Curse #1. I fell into that trap. I was never satisfied. I would just kept editing and editing and editing. And then I finally got to a point where I said, I can't even read my own work anymore. I don't want to read it. And then I decided to hand it off to an editor. And that's one of your biggest, scariest moments as a beginning author, is to trusting your work that you've just spent 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years on. You give it to them, then what? So
Hmm.
I would say if you have to choose between the two, then you're probably doing it incorrectly. You
Yes.
you want to write until the very last word. Then
Absolutely.
then you don't go back and say, "Can I add more to it?" No. If you have a good word count for your genre, then leave it alone, go back and edit, And then as you edit, you will start to see there's a plot hole. You write that down and then you go back and you add some to it to fix it. But if you're, like I said, if you're deciding between the two, you've probably done it a little backwards.
Well said, Mark. Well said.
Yeah.
And finally, to cap off this amazing author interview, at the end of the day, when someone picks up your story, and for your latest one coming out soon, what do you want them to take away from your style of writing and how you approach storytelling?
I just like to think that they would think it's solidly written. I mean, that's basically what an author wants, right? You don't want to put out a poor book. You want a reader to pick it up and say, that was a really good book. Now, could it be their favorite? Maybe. Could it not be their favorite, but they still liked it? Absolutely. That's the best I can hope for. I'd love to see people say, that was a really well-written book, and then pass it along to a friend or recommend it to a friend. That's all we can ask for.
Absolutely. Very true, Mark. And on that note, viewers and listeners, we conclude this incredible, amazing author interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. Want to give a huge thank you to my friend Mark for coming back on the show. Now, Mark, where can people find you on social media if they want to reach out and connect? And where can people buy copies of your books? And thirdly, will you be doing any appearances in any festivals for the rest of the year?
As a matter of fact, I just got an email today that asked me if I wanted to do an appearance on April 25th in an author signing on April 25th at a place called the Book Rack. So I will be making, we're going to have, in fact, it won't just be me. We're going to try to make it a local author event.
Woo!
And so it'll be really fun. So I'm hoping that goes through. As far as my books, I have them uploaded. They are on Amazon and they are just about everywhere. They're on Kobo, Apple, Vimeo, wherever you want to look. They're probably there. And I forgot what was the other part?
Where can people find you on social media if they want to reach out and connect?
On LinkedIn, and I know, don't laugh at me for using LinkedIn. LinkedIn is, believe it or not, that is where I found most of my connections.
Same here.
Yeah, LinkedIn, I know people dog it, but at least it's not like Facebook. And I have met some absolutely wonderful people through LinkedIn. So
absolutely, very true.
On LinkedIn, it is at Tales by McClain. Okay. And I'm on Instagram as well. And I think it's almost the same handle. But, and if none of that works, go to Next Journey Books, one word, nextjourneybooks.com. Everything's there. My books are there. My social media is there. Everything's there.
Absolutely. I will link all that down below in the description of this video, everybody. And if you'd like to see Mark's first appearance on the channel, I'll also be linking it here for you to watch. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for another amazing episode here on the channel. And before we officially end, I would also like to make an announcement myself. I've made it a few times before, but I'll just say it again. I'll be making my second appearance at the Los Angeles Times. Well, second appearance at a festival, but first time at LA. I'll be making my first appearance at the Los Angeles Times Festival of Books, April 18th at booth 128. I'll be selling all of my copies for all of my books, The Gathering, Son of Persia, Last Angel of Earth, and The Wolf of Rome. So if you're going to be in the LA area, please come down to USC. That is where the festival will be held. I'll be at booth 128 for the whole day. So I'll be linking that down below in the description of this video and posting as you get closer to the date. And as always, everybody, thank you so much for joining us for another amazing episode. A huge thank you to my friend Mark for coming back on the show. And if you'd like to see him back a third time, perhaps talking a little bit more about something that we mentioned or discussed in the interview in an episode of the Writers Hub series, you know what you have to do, viewers and listeners. Like this video, comment down below, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. And until next time, this has been the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill, signing out. Wish you all a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. Happy Wednesday, everybody. We'll see you all in the next episode. Have a wonderful day and take care.